In a Dutch colony there lived a baker. His name was Van Amsterdam. He was as honest as he could be. Every morning he checked and balanced his scales, and he gave his customers exactly what they asked for. No more and no less. His shop was never busier than it was on December 6th, the day before the Dutch celebrate St. Nicholas Day. Customers would come from all over to get his St. Nicholas Day cookies. He would make them out of gingerbread, and they would be tall and thin, just like the St. Nick the Dutch believed. He would wear a long red cloak and a big tall bishop's hat. One St. Nick's Eve, a woman came into his shop in a long black shawl. "I wish to buy 1 dozen of your St. Nicholas Day cookies." He went and grabbed the tray, counted out 12 cookies. She said, "No, I asked for a dozen. You're only giving me 12. He says, "Ma'am, everyone knows that 12 is a dozen, but I say a dozen is 13. She said, "Give me 1 more." Now, Van Amsterdam wasn't going to stand for this foolishness. So he's like, "Ma'am, my customers get exactly what they pay for. No more, no less." "Then you can keep your cookies," she said. She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "Van Amsterdam, honest as you may be, your heart is small and your fist is tight. Fall again, mount again, learn how to rise again." And then she was gone. From that day on, nothing went right for Van Amsterdam. His bread either rose too high or fell flat. His cakes would crumble or be too chewy. His pies would be too sour or they'd be too sweet. His cookies would burn or be too doughy. His customers started to notice, and they all started going to different bakers. He sat in the shop. "This woman cursed me," he said. Over the year, he grew poorer and poorer. His shelves were nearly bare because he didn't bake anything because nothing turned out. A full year later, St. Nicholas Day came again. He made his St. Nick's cookies like he always did, but his shop was empty. By the end of the day, he decided to close up and go to bed. "I wish St. Nick was here to help me," he said sadly. That night he had a dream. He dreamt he was a child again, and he was with a bunch of other kids all around St. Nick. St. Nick was handing out gifts to all the kids from the baskets by his horse, and Van Amsterdam noticed something strange. He noticed that no matter how many gifts St. Nick was giving out, the basket seemed fuller than ever. It didn't empty at all. Finally, it was Van Amsterdam's turn to get his gift. So he got his gift from St. Nick, opened it up to find that it was his St. Nick's cookies. He looked up to smile at St. Nick and thank him, and saw that instead of St. Nick, it was an old woman who cursed him, looking down at him, smiling. He woke with a start. As he lay in bed with the moonlight shining in through his blinds, he thought to himself, "I always give my customers exactly what they ask for, no more and no less. But why not more?" The next day he got up early on St. Nicholas Day, took out his gingerbread, made his St. Nick's cookies tall and thin with a long red bishop's cloak and a big red bishop's hat. And as soon as he was finished, the door of his shop flew open, and the woman in a long black cloak came in, said, "I want to buy 1 dozen of your St. Nick's cookies." Excited, Van Amsterdam grabbed the tray, counted out 12 cookies, and 1 more. He said, "From now on, in this shop, 13 shall be 1 dozen. The woman smiled and said, "You learned well, Van Amsterdam. You will surely be rewarded," paid for her cookies, and left. Van Amsterdam could have sworn as she was leaving he saw the tail end of a red cloak go out the door. That day he had more business than he ever had. When everybody found out that he was giving away 13 as 1 dozen, they stopped going to the other bakers and came to buy by him again. He grew richer and richer. All the other bakers started noticing and started counting 13 as 1 dozen as well. This practice spread from town to town, colony to colony, and soon all bakers were giving away 13 as 1 dozen. And that, they say, is how a baker's dozen came to be known as 13.